Look, I agree with you on that part. I'm an actual immigrant. I came over here when I was 5, and I have...
From Ukraine, was it? Or?
Well, it was Russia at the time. It's now Ukraine.
Russia at the time.
Yeah, it was the
now Ukraine, right.
USSR at the time.
I remember you and I spoke about that.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I've started a business. I've easily paid over $10 million in taxes over the course of my life. I employ, lots and lots of people. So yeah, I think that people should be allowed to immigrate, but I don't think it should be a free-for-all and open borders and so forth. I think that people need to apply. And if they get accepted on the basis of what they can contribute, then yeah, they should be accepted, because this ultimately is a nation built on immigrants. But yeah, I don't believe in open borders. I don't believe in what's happening in sanctuary cities and so forth. So me and you are on the same page when it comes to that.
And here's what I would say is, and I go a little bit further in the book here to just, what I'm about to say may sound a little controversial, but it is just stone cold hard fact. And sometimes it's the facts that hurt the most that we have to confront. So I raise this in the book, I make this argument, but I'll give you the short form of it here. You could imagine an immigration system that rewards somebody's willingness to work hard. Maybe it's just the hardest workers we let in. You could imagine an immigration system that rewards intelligence. Maybe it's just the most intelligent people we let in. You could imagine an immigration system that rewards love of country. The people who love the United States the most get in, or the ones who can speak English get in, or the ones that know the most about our civic history get in. You could imagine all of those systems. You could have an immigration system that selects for the kinds of people you want. Right now, we have none of those. The number one human attribute that our immigration system selects for today is your willingness to lie. Actually, it's dishonesty. No, that's a hard fact, because if you have somebody who's honest come into the country and say, I can't in good conscience tell you and put a signed sworn statement and check off the box of seeking asylum by telling you that I'm facing imminent risk of personal harm due to my religion or my race or some part of my identity in another country, which is the basis for seeking refugee status. I can't tell you that in good conscience. Well, if you don't say that, then you're not going to get in the country. But the people who are willing to say that are the ones who actually end up getting in. So we have an entire immigration system designed on rewarding the people who are willing to lie. Well, if that's the attribute you reward, then I do think you're going to have an adverse selection of the kind of people that get into the country. If your first act of entering the country breaks the law, then it shouldn't be surprising that you are more likely than an average person to break the law even further when you're already here. I told the story of one woman who came to the United States, I kid you not, fleeing persecution of Putin. She says there's anti-LGBTQ policies left a lesbian woman like her persecuted under Putin, and had a really sad tale of all that she had gone through in Russia to come here and seek asylum status. But then some strange things in the story started not adding up. And it turned out later when she was questioned about it, under even the slightest question, she just breaks down in tears. She's like, okay, I'm not gay. In fact, I don't even like gay people. I never have. And that ends up being the person who just says what they need to get in the country. So our immigration system right now rewards liars, as opposed to, you could say hard workers, you could say people who have great knowledge or willingness to love the country. None of those things is the basis. And I just don't think you're going to get a great outcome from a system that rewards those who are most willing to be dishonest. Yet that's exactly the system, Vlad, that we have today.
Well, as an Indian man, do you consider Kamala Harris?
I'm an American. I don't mean to be semantic, but it matters deeply to me. But I'm proud of my Indian American heritage, to be sure.
Okay, so
I'm American through and through.
That's absolutely fair. Let me rephrase that then. As a American man of Indian heritage, would you consider Kamala Harris the first Indian to run for president?
Well, actually, as a point of fact, I don't think that's accurate. Bobby Jindal, I think, ran a while ago. I mean, there are probably others we could go through history of people of Indian descent to have done it. I certainly did it this year. She ran, I guess, in 2020. But regardless, I think the reason people have focused so much on her identity, on her ethnic identity, is that she has made identity politics a pretty important part of her worldview. You could say you like it or not like it. I'm not debating the merits of it. But when she turned around on the debate stage, remember this in 2020? She looked over at Joe Biden and says, this elaborate tale of a woman of color, a girl of color who faced difficulty in segregationist times. Talked about the girl going on that bus. She says, I was that little girl. I mean, that was her moment running for U.S. president. So she has made this an essential part of her rise in American politics, not just for the presidency, but at every step of her way. So I think that she has drawn natural attention to, if she's made that a core part of her case for leadership, then I think she's naturally drawn a lot of scrutiny on that axis too. I prefer to debate far more on policy. What's the right vision for the future of the country? I think as a point of fact, she's not the first person of Indian descent to run in a major party primary for U.S. president.
Well, hold on a sec. So you're right. There was Bobby Jindal and so forth, but she's the first official nominee of a major party to be running for president who is of Indian descent. That part is true.
I think that's a fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just want to point that out. You're right. There has
it's
been
an opinion.
Lots of people run in primaries and so forth, but to actually be the official candidate of either the Democrats or the Republicans, it's a pretty big deal.
Well, here's what I will say is I think I might have been the first to have ever gotten a primary vote for me.
Okay.
And I got primary votes in the Iowa caucus last year when I ran. And the thing about Kamala Harris is, say what you will. I mean, it's a Democratic Party. You can believe in democracy, you would think. There's not a single Democrat in the person in the Democratic Party who last time or this time has casted one primary vote for Kamala Harris. Not one vote has ever been cast for Kamala Harris. More votes have been cast for me for U.S. president than have been cast for Kamala Harris for U.S. president. So anyway, it depends on where you're going with this, but I do think one of the interesting things about her candidacy,
hold on,
because he rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
That's a little bit of a gotcha because she became.
Well, it's not really.
She
though,
became
right?
the candidate because Biden stepped down. No one actually had to really vote for her in the same way.
But that's what people have a big issue with, right? Because last year I was on the debate stage. I made the prediction. People call me. I'm not kidding you. You could look this up. They say he's a conspiracy theorist when I said this. I was in the debate stage, looked the camera in the eye, and said, to the Democratic Party, I'd like to deliver a message. Can you just tell us who your nominee is going to be? Because we know it's not going to be Biden. They said that's such conspiracy theory. That's exactly what's played out. And it does feel a little bit undemocratic. As recently as May of this year, as recently as June of this year, Biden, Kamala, everybody said there's no chance that any other person than Biden is going to be the nominee. And then in July, right before the final sprint of the election, you get a swap out. I do think that a lot of people were left being rubbed the wrong way to say that's not a particularly democratic way of choosing who the nominee is going to be. It was done through a backroom deal, and it does feel a little bit like a sleight of hand. If you tell somebody for a year and a half you're not going to do something, and then you do that exact thing, I think it at least demands some scrutiny. In the same way that if you actually wear your identity on your sleeve and then somebody else asks a question about your identity, I think that's fair game. Now, my own style is I prefer this country's politics to be worked out through competing visions of policy. We don't have to agree on everything, but different people have different visions of policy. That's how I like to roll. But in fairness, on the questions you're bringing up, was she somehow democratically anointed? She couldn't even make it to the Iowa caucus in her own party the last time she ran for president. This time around, it would have likely been the very similar outcome, but for the fact it was a backroom deal rather than the people of this country deciding to nominate her. But anyway, to your point, as a point of fact, was she nominated for U.S. president? Of course she was. We all know that. That's obvious.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you've accused her of sidelining her Indian identity and emphasizing her black heritage.
I've not accused her of that, no. But what I have said is when I was asked about this is, I do think a lot of, I mean, this is not me, don't shoot the messenger here, but it's true. And I think if you talk to other Indian Americans across the country, they would tell you the same thing, is I think a lot of Indian Americans have been somewhat disappointed in her reluctance historically to at least talk much more openly about the Indian side of her identity, or to lean into whichever one was convenient, at certain points in her political rise. But I'm not leveling those accusations at her. But when you say that in the past, I remember an interview where people asked me, well, what do you think about this controversy? I said, I'm not attacking her for identity, but I could tell you, don't shoot the messenger. I do think that it's a fact that there's a lot of Indian Americans out there who are somewhat disappointed in her.